Hello, everyone. I want to share something I did with my team whenever I am either the commander or in charge of a team or section. I did a professional development sessions. My goal or intent when I do these sessions was to help my soldiers succeed, both professionally and personally. The other intent was and is if I get killed or die, they can take charge with confidence, with least interruption to our operation, and our team will keep moving forward. Today's session is about critical thinking. What I'll present to you is just a basic tool you can use to help you face a situation head on. Again, basic tool. Last time I spoke about commitment and compliance. These two affects how you perceive the world and the outcome of your analysis, which also means the situation will either be permanent or temporary. We aim for a lasting solution. This will be a multi-session event so that it will give you a chance to have those deep thoughts. I truly want you to succeed and be happy without compromise. My goal or intent is not to change you. That's not my place. Only you can change that yourself by choosing to do so. I'm just giving you the tool to make those decisions or giving you options. Before we start, let me tell you about an ancient Greek general. He believed how we define our circumstances will define our fortune. This general was exiled and he explored two problem-solving styles the Athenians used during a war. One was dynamic or emotional, impulsive, and the other is deliberate or with patience, calmness, and rationale. Sounds like the Vulcans and the Klingon for you Star Trek folks. Even back then, he knew that the individual self defines the path, and that path will determine the journey, the quality of that journey. Let me simplify and keep this in mind. Do we decide based on our value or do we decide based on our interests? Let me give you an example. Picture this. I've been I've been in a jungle for 14 hours for the last few weeks. I'm exhausted. I just want to take a shower and go to bed. Once I get to the door, someone interrupts me and asks for help. But I know that this person, this junior officer, can handle the situation without my help. If I decide based on my interests, which is go to bed or take a shower, go to bed, that means I just want to get him off my back, get him give him an impassioned directive, and just keep going. My focus are for self-rewarding, self-gratification, and to be comfortable at that moment of life. My response is an emotional impulse that did not consider the grand consequence and risk of the whole situation. That means those risks and those consequences will materialize as time will pass. If I decide based on my value, which is to help him grow and create synergy, I will take time, guide, guide him or her, and mentor him or her through the process. I understand the consequences and risks, which is my health, my well being. But those consequences and risks are immediate and short term. The rewards, however, are lasting for both of us. The leader I help will have a better understanding of how to solve those situations and those problems, and he or she will lead his team or her team to success. He or she and I will develop that confidence in each other and will have that mutual trust. We become band of brothers or band of brother and sister. For those of you who had been in combat, you know that relationship is similar to having a soulmate. That's the synergy I aim to achieve. That's my value. My principle is integrity. So two different things in the value. We'll talk about that in a different session. When we comply to or make decisions based on interest, we let our circumstances or the situation make the decision for us with long-term consequences and risk. When we are committed, we look for solution based on a deep analysis using our values and principles, not the situation, thereby creating that lasting solution with short-term consequences and risk. I hope you see the difference. Here's the official definition of critical thinking. Let me play with my screen here. So that's the official definition of critical thinking. For this video, we'll focus on the first part of the process, which is processing the situation and information. If we don't do these key parts right the first time, we might as well settle on a solution. And go back to a normal screen here. The next one is a flow chart, a simple flow chart on how we can do the critical thinking. On my, let's see, there are two scenarios. One is you don't need critical thinking, which is let's say someone cut you off and you know what you need, what decision you need to do. It's a short-term decision, nothing big. And then on the right side, you'll see how the critical thinking flows, and it shows some of the biases or prejudices we have inside us that will affect our analysis and the solution. And we'll talk more about the biases in a bit. So take a screenshot of it so that you, if you want to know more, and you can change it as we go. Critical thinking starts with identifying the solution or the situation or the problems, then defining it. After that, we need to genuinely identify our emotional biases, prejudices, and the groupthink we belong in. We need to have those independent thinking. Psychology states we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. I agree. That means we evaluate the world based on the lens of the primary values and emotions we espouse. Let's see. Mostly, I value synergy and creating that win-win scenario and situation. If I'm in a situation of conflict, I want myself and the other party to seek to understand first, to mutually work on a solution. If the other person values win or lose scenario or the survivor mentality, the lens they will see my assessment, or the lens they will see me is I'm arguing with them. And that's already a break in our communication. So we need to understand the lenses we espouse and the emotions we espouse so that we can have a better solution. Here's another example to help you understand those emotional biases, prejudices, and groupthink that will affect our vision of the solution. In the movie The Mission, there are two priests, played by Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. Jeremy Irons' character had been a priest at an early age, whereas Robert De Niro's character started out in an environment of violence and self-gratification. And you'll see that in the beginning of the movie. I'm not promoting the movie, by the way. It's an example. It's a clear example of this emotional bias. When they got grouped together, they got put in a mission to help the Native community and teach them the Catholic doctrine. I believe it's going to be in a South American jungle, could be Brazil. Towards the end of the movie, I believe it was the conquistador who wanted to take charge of the Native community. Both priests got their message from God, but each had a different interpretation of that message. But they have the same profession. How could that be? Jeremy Irons' character led the community in prayers and procession through a peaceful protest, whereas Robert De Niro's character gathered all the fighting age males and taught them how to fight. They have the same profession. They have the same faith. They had similar values. Similar, not the same values. But they interpreted God's message differently. So do you see the difference? We need to understand where we stand. We need to put those biases aside and get that message right. Do we settle in that one angle lens, or do we commit in seeing the world beyond that one lens If we use beyond that 20/20 vision, we are likely to see details beyond our scope of vision that will be useful. If you're driving in a freeway and if you only focus what you can see ahead of you, you don't know what's going to happen 100 yards away. So you need to have that understanding. In my case, I look at my GPS and understand that there's a curve ahead, so I prepare myself for a possible danger. So I don't want you getting uh, I don't want you getting blindsided. Life is always beyond our field of vision or beyond the horizon, and if we don't seize that opportunity, we get blindsided, and I don't want that happening. Let's see another topic. Emotions are roadblocks to critical thinking. I'm not saying emotions are bad. We need to understand them and let them get don't let them get the best of us. Instead of using emotion, let's use principles. Principles don't change in time or situation, such as integrity, dignity, honor, truth, and love. The Stephen Covey teaches this very well. So kudos to him, and I enjoy his seminars. Bless his soul, by the way. Some of you may say, well, love is an emotion, and I make decision based on love. Love is an emotion, it's also a value, it's also an act, it's also an energy, it's also a choice, and it's also a principle. It's all of that. Where it's also different is it helps us perform deliberate decision making. Love, along with hope, also release positive chemical reaction within us. Love and hope are one of the few values, emotions, and principle that does not expect anything in return, whereas the other emotions desire validation. Emotions are dynamic, ever changing. Their values and their energies. That's where they end. Something dynamic is an impulse, and that it has that short-term gratification. It may be the next 5 minutes, this week, next week, or maybe a whole year, but does not take the full account of those risks and causing consequences. Road rage is the best example. I've seen this a lot in Seattle, where someone has a road rage and shoots someone. Immediate gratification for that person, unfortunately, but the consequence is there's a victim, a shooting victim, and the family is broken. Not just the victim's family, but his family. So understand those emotional impulses. Something deliberate takes risk and consequences into full account and reduces their values. But you don't focus on self-reward. You look at the long-term solution. So the outcome becomes more rewarding and lasting. The last part of today's session is a deep thought. On the screen, just some of the values, emotion, principles, and actions we might espouse. Let me enlarge that one. My challenge to you, or dare to you, is pick the top 25 that is the primary category that affects your decision-making process. There is no right or wrong answer because we want to evaluate your biases. It will give you an understanding of the now and if you want to change those values and behaviors. You have that basic tool. Remember, it's not the value you want to espouse. It's the value you do espouse now and use to make the decisions. Just like the road rage example, or just like the movie about the mission. Which one did they espouse? Let me give you an example. A, a few years ago, I was in active duty, military. I was tired and I missed my family at home in Seattle because they were aging and still are. I love being in the active duty military. I know it was my calling to my core. I elected to choose comfort after 8 years over my calling and love it over comfort and love and uh, in my calling to make my decision. The first 2 years were I was content with my decision, but as time passed, I regretted it. and I wish I could turn back time. I'm I'm made hard changes in my life and behavior. I joined the reserve, and for some odd reason, the majority of my time were spent in active duty. It seems life reward me again. That's the other thing. Life tends to find a way to make things right, but it shouldn't have to. But we have to choose the life we are meant to have or be. Now, my life is adding more adventure, more great value in my journey. I'm going to be start working with great people in Australia. So join me as join me in my journey, and I promise you, it will be worth it. Now, let's go back to these values. Pick the top 25. Which one are you espousing now? Which one are making you decide, making helping you make those decisions? So, if you have any questions, talk to me, and then we'll have the next session, maybe next week or the week after. But join me in my journey as we go forth and do great things. Have a good day.